On this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast, we are talking to one of the leading voices of music education here in Pennsylvania on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. I'm Mark Despotakis, and we are doing another one of these on the road with real life humans. We are here in the Poconos recording this while we are at the PMEA conference at the Kalahari Resort. And one of the session rooms behind us. And joining me, as you can see, a real-life human.
Turns out, I've been called worse, you know?
Yes, so we can prove it. He's not just somebody on Zoom or something.
That's right, yes. That's right.
Dr. Jonathan Helmick, Associate Professor of Music at Slippery Rock University and Director of Bands there.
Yep. Pleasure to be here, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, you got it, please.
This is great. Yeah, I mean, you know, I look at you as kind of one of these thought leaders in Pennsylvania, and really, I mean, in the nation as far as music education goes. So forward thinking in the programming.
Well, thank you.
And very particularly the marching band at Slippery Rock.
Yeah, we try to hit both areas.
Which is so crucial, right? And
it is.
And you do both well.
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
Yes, well, it's very true. So, but let's kind of level set for anyone out there who might not know you, which I can't believe that would exist, because I mean you become such a part of PMEA and the Pennsylvania music scene while you've been in the state. But give us kind of the elevator speech of who you are.
Sure. I mean, I'm originally from Ohio. I graduated from the University of Akron. I studied with Bob Jorgensen and Tucker Jolly, who are my two heroes. And if anybody who's from that area, Bob Jorgensen was past president of the American Bandmasters Association, and he was also one of the principal euphonium player. I shouldn't say one of the, but principal euphonium player in the Army field band. And if you're a euphonium player like I am, and you're sitting in that ensemble, it's a very real experience, you know? I mean, it doesn't get more real than that. So he was sort of my inspiration, and while I was there, I studied music education. I also got a master's degree in music performance on euphonium, and then I didn't quite know if I wanted to jump right into public school teaching, if I wanted to, do a little bit of travel, try the euphonium thing a little bit. And then it was my last year in my master's degree program, and this guy by the name of Tom Friskillo came up from the University of Southern Mississippi, and he guest conducted the ensemble. I fell in love, absolutely fell in love. He was brilliant as a conductor and as a human being, and I thought, you have it both. You have both of those things. I want to study with you. So he, at the very end of conducting, said, it's been a pleasure, but unfortunately, we're probably not going to be under my baton again because I'm retiring in about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I thought, if I'm going to jump, I need to go now. So I went to the University of Southern Mississippi. I knew nobody in Mississippi, and it was probably one of the best decisions that I made. I taught public school down there. I also taught in the community college level, and then wound my way back up to Slippery Rock University. So.
Yeah, interesting piece of that when you say like that one thing, right, changed, kind of changed your life. Well, a couple things changed your life in there, but like the going to Mississippi piece of that, your good friend Cameron Jenkins, who's been a part of what we do, talks a lot about
relationships.
Those and just those things that happen, and that's really interesting. Yours is the Mississippi connection.
Absolutely, and for anybody out there, like I know we all have expectations of what this career can, should, whatever look like for us, in general. Whenever you feel your intuition and a door open, walk through it. At least peek to the other side. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I always say, I look at these things in my life where I could have, said yes or no, or I could have not even tried to do XYZ thing. And had I not done it, right, like this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't. And so it's good to look back and do that. And I just love that yours is that Mississippi connection.
Yeah.
You to
oh, for sure.
Yeah. So you're out. You're one of these people also who I don't think actually ever sleeps.
It's the caffeine that keeps me going.
Okay, all right. So full teaching load, but you're out guest conducting a lot, and you're at every conference conference there is. I mean,
Wow.
you're out there seeing the reality plus teaching your own students who are in the reality. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, like, what do you see? Like, what are the trends out there? What is music education like now?
That is such a big, all-encompassing question. So I'm going to give you not necessarily what I see, but kind of what I feel from the students that are coming in, but also getting to guest conduct and getting to go to these different conferences and see what's happening. Obviously, like, we're seeing a lot in terms of music diversifying, right? And bringing different aspects of like what can be done through music, under this umbrella of, we want to make sure that we're teaching music for music's sake. We also want to make sure that we're connecting people, right? Especially post-pandemic. And even with students coming into programs, majors or non-majors, right? We're not talking about like just career, like future music educators, but they're all looking for connection. And there is something in this craft that you can't get through math necessarily, that is this instant bond between people. It's this shared language, and just on a surface level, that language is so important to communicating meaning and feeling and emotion. And I think that's part of what students are craving, both at the collegiate level, but also elsewhere. And not just students, but communities, right? We're even seeing people coming into community ensembles or attending concerts more regularly, at least that's what I'm seeing.
Right.
As far as that goes. And I think it's all under that umbrella of like, we want to feel like we're part of a community again, and we want to be able to participate in building community.
So then, what is that like then at the collegiate level? Because students coming into those programs are different and have different expectations. But also, you have to be forward thinking and realize that the students that your students at the college level are going to go teach also have different expectations.
Sure.
And maybe it's fair to say it's always been like that, but it's kind of hyper like that right now.
Yeah. I think I understand kind of where you're going with this. When students, especially now, post-pandemic, when they come in to audition or to participate just in like a high school band day or something like that, I notice that the variety of, maybe not variety is the differences, we'll say, in like preparation, but also expectations for what they're going to encounter when they get there. It's in many ways a tale of two cities.
Okay.
And some students are very aware they've had access in terms of, private lessons or coaching from, a mentor, and they know what they're getting into and they kind of know what to expect. And there's other students, and I'm going to give a little bit of myself to this. I didn't have, when I was getting ready to go to college, I didn't really have lessons. We didn't have theory. I didn't know that music theory was a thing until I just kind of accidentally, one of my friends had gone on to music school, and she came back, and we were very close. She went to Youngstown State. Her name was Miranda, and she sort of coached me through all of these things that I was going to have to think about. And one of them was theory. And I went and took a lesson with Tucker Jolly, the University of Akron, and he talked to me a little bit about it, and he said, have you been prepping for this? And I said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, okay, well, that's kind of a red flag. So on vacation, went to Barnes & Noble, right? I bought Music Theory for Dummies, and I read it like page after page for like the entire ride out west and back. It was our last family vacation. And I just relate to that so much because I didn't know. But I think that perspective of trying to break down the vulnerability with students coming into college or even going out into the profession of, it's okay that you don't know. But we need to start talking about what you do and don't know, because I'm here to help you walk that path. I'm your flashlight, but you got to turn it on.
Right. What an incredible education philosophy that is, right?
Well, thanks.
I mean, I think that's, and I've seen that in action, not just like, teaching the music piece. Obviously that's, that's your title.
Sure,
but
sure.
you do things like what is appropriate professional dress?
Yeah.
Because that might not be something the student thinks about and is prepared for and aware of. And somebody might say, well, what does that have to do with getting a degree, that you're going to be able to go teach music in a K-12 school? Well, it has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
It has a lot to do with any career choice.
Absolutely.
But I just think that speaks to, like your way of thinking.
Yeah. Well, and I never really thought about that, like to that level. So, like with students, with people in general, and I think the nature of what we do with music, it's so self-reflective. We're always like comparing ourselves to others and trying to make what we do better, and it's that iterative process. But encouraging students to look outward too at what they're about to fit into or be a part of, or in some cases shape, is incredibly important. That's why I believe in, like, that we took the marching band over to Ireland for the St. Patrick's Parade. I'm about to take 14 students to Italy to do a side-by-side concert with a band outside of Milan. And part of the reason for that is, I want them to keep engaging with music, but I want them to see how other people across the world are doing this, because it's that connection, it's that relationship that it's that model of being in a new situation. And I don't know if you remember the first time you traveled internationally, but it can kind of be, a little intimidating. And once a student does it and they develop that self-confidence, they can rear view mirror that, so to speak, and apply that to everything that they do.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah. Because you're thinking about what is that their students that they're teaching their first experience.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of people don't realize that, you're a marching band guy, I'm a marching band guy. And like I when I started teaching marching band, one of the things that kind of was this eye opener for me was like the first time we took coach buses somewhere with that band.
Oh yeah.
And there were kids getting on the bus and they were just like, and I was like, whoa, reality check. Like, well, they never would have had a chance to be on a coach bus. And then the first time, for them, like we go on a band trip that we had to fly. Another reality check. So, and then and to your point, I love that just analogy you just said, the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
Because you do remember that and now think about that for future students. And you're doing that on so many levels. And I think it's just so impressive what you're doing.
Well,
there.
thank you.
So let's totally shift topics and talk about something else that is pretty incredible that you're doing at Slippery Rock. So, is the title of it the Composer Diversity Project? Is that what is it titled something, or?
We haven't necessarily titled it yet, but that frames it pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, and that might shift here pretty soon. I can give you the summary.
Yeah,
if you'd
absolutely.
Like.
Please.
Okay. So during the pandemic, when we were completely online, right? So this was like in March to April of 2020. We were trying to think of ways, like how are we going to keep the students connected, engaging with each other, engaging with music, and give them some sort of anchor in the craziness that was happening, but also continue their professional development, obviously. So I sent out a survey to the students that included a variety of topics that I was ready to lecture on and to give them activities to do, so on and so forth. I sent out things like Voodoo in the Wind Band, which I thought that's a winner. That they're absolutely going to pick that.
Wait, and this is something you're totally prepared to speak on this topic.
Absolutely, I can give you the next 20 minutes if you'd like.
That is a future podcast because I want to hear this. But okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. Sorry. And then like diversity in wind band literature, the history and development of the wind band in the United States. The thing that even, I can't remember if it beat Voodoo in the Wind Band or if it was a really close number 2, was diversity in wind band literature. I thought, wow, this is awesome. Okay, let's do this. Through the process, very Reader's Digest version of this, the students started then this is very organic, we started talking about identity and intersectionality and your identity and other people's identity and how the music that you create, consume, produce, etc., how it is shaped by that identity and how systems, right, shape the music that gets put in front of us. And that started unraveling a lot of discussion and a lot of feedback. So then we fast forward to the fall, and the students, at the end of the course, we do course evaluations, and they kept saying, like, we want to continue this conversation, we want to keep doing this, like, what can we do next? And so we devoted one day a week to basically taking our entire music library, thousands of pieces. We distilled it down to every unique composer that was in there, and we did a demographic study of our entire library. And we did our very best, it's certainly flawed, but we did our best to account for visible and invisible diversity and categorize composers so that we could start mapping out the statistics and represent it visually so that we could understand how we were being impacted by our library and how systems and history impacted our, like, what we put on our programs. So we're getting to equitable programming practices, right? And what we found is that obviously there are dominant identities that are overrepresented, which, no surprise. I mean, we're not surprised to find this at all. And the students compared that data to the demographics of SWOPE, our music building, our university, and the nation. And they even started asking questions about the census and how the census could be, shading what we see based on what we're looking for and what we acknowledge is out there, which, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast. So this unraveled into the students wanted to be agents of change. So I pointed them in directions of and structured it along the way where we wrote grants. We've received about $6,000 total in grant funding. We're going to commission a composer from an underrepresented background that the students basically studied the literature of different composers, met these folks at Midwest, talked to them, engaged with them. Yeah, and then we as a wind ensemble voted on the first person that we were going to pick. And that person is Matt Campbell. We're super excited to have him on board for this project. And there are times when you're doing something and you know that it's like, this is what you're supposed to be doing because it's like the universe just makes it so easy, right? It's like, okay. This composer is so genuine. He's so good with the students. He is so easy to work with. And he picked, I'm not going to announce the title, but he picked a title and a theme for the piece that frames this into the future. Because the students, as part of this, wanted, not required, but suggested to whoever participates in this piece, we're going to do a consortium in addition to the grant funding, but it's going to lay down a legacy fund to hopefully do this in the future. Well, now, will it be every year, every 2 years? I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. But it's going to be a grade 3 to 4 work, about 6 minutes long. So it's going to be appropriate for like upper level, junior high or high school. And we're trying to get as many people on board as we can.
Curious for, you talk about how great the composer has been with the students. Have they done anything like this before where it was so student driven and a bunch of student driven?
Yeah, not like this. So right now, mainly the officers of the wind ensemble and really Ben Johnston, who's a music therapy major and oboe player in the wind ensemble, and Emily Eastman have been the people making the most contact or the most organization around the project right now. And we've premiered pieces before, right? We've been part of consortia, so on and so forth. So they've done that. They've worked with like guest conductors and guest composers and that kind of thing. But this is just sort of taking it to a whole new level. And I could not be more excited for what's going to take place.
So also as part of this, you analyzed the music library.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it probably validated what you knew, or maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it did. We went in, and maybe it was a little bit of research bias, but it turned out to be true, right? Like the statistics don't lie. But we knew going in that this is going to be a heavily white, Caucasian, male library. And
so now is that like we were making a very conscious effort? I'm sure you were probably making an effort before that, but now even the students are aware of that.
Absolutely.
So, how do you balance then is you're programming, all the time, and music teachers out there are programming all the time.
Sure.
There are those classic pieces of wind band music
Mm-hmm.
that you could probably list that says every student should do this at some point.
Sure,
and I
sure.
would say that too.
Absolutely.
And maybe we have some overlap, and I bet we don't have some overlap.
Yeah.
But many of them are from that very particular thing.
Sure.
So as you're programming, the question I'm getting to is, as you're programming, how do you really consider that balance of, I really want them to be exposed to the whole suite? So we'll just throw that out
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Plus something from a current living composer of an underrepresented, because there's only so much time.
Yeah. That's something that we all, as conductors, as teachers, as educators, I think we're always concerning ourselves with, because also the music we pick, if we know that our students are not as good at this one thing, I want to make sure that I program
another
that
factor,
thing
right.
as part of the pedagogy, right? And we also know that we teach like we were taught. And I know, whoever's out there, the amount of time that we have to really look at a lot of different literature, it seems like that time is becoming shorter and shorter. Right. As we pick up administrative duties, as we lose substitute teachers and we have to cover somebody else's class, that's hard. So I do believe that the classics of tomorrow are being written today, right? So those whole suites, that's happening now. And I think the more we stay current, the more we listen to podcasts about wind band literature, the more that we go to these conferences, the more that we share and connect as colleagues, the better it's going to be. And the more that we look at publishing companies that are making like a conscious effort to put a lot of music from a lot of different identities and perspectives out there, the better that is. And one of those, just to plug it, is Murphy Music Press. I mean, he's doing a fantastic job of just getting so many composers' voices out there, which is awesome. But I think too, the more that we have conversations about equitable programming practices, the more that we're going to learn about all of these emerging composers, but all of these composers that have been there all along that we just haven't had, I don't want to say access to, because that's not true, but that we haven't accessed. We haven't consciously gone out and accessed.
So we've kind of talked about the what's next for this project, but kind of in general, for the programs you oversee at Slippery Rock, what's next? What's on the horizon?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm about to go, like I said before, to Italy. My friend Armando Saldarini, he and I went to school together at the University of Southern Mississippi.
You were 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
And now I want bacon. If only. No, so we're going to go out to Milan. Well, it's really Trujillo, but we're flying into Milan. And I'm taking 14 students, along with my colleague, Kathy Malego. We're going to do a side-by-side concert, rehearsals, all of that kind of stuff. We're going to tour the region. And then in the fall, he's going to bring 14 of his community band members to Slippery Rock so that both communities get to benefit from this sort of partnership. We are also going to do, the London New Year's Parade, January 1st of this upcoming year.
Just the London New Year's.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited for that because, and from international travel, when, especially a performance of that nature, when those students perform in front of over 500,000 people, they come out the other end changed.
Right.
They really do. And that sort of thing is, for the next 20, 25 years, that's what I want to do. Like, not necessarily the international piece, but watching that transformative experience happen with students. That's a drug.
Yeah.
And I'm addicted.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, I always love to see what you guys are doing because it's always something new and innovative. You don't do the same thing twice, and I love it. And your students absolutely benefit for it.
Well, thank you.
And the whole music education community does as well. So, Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. Happy to.
And thank you all for joining us on PMEA's Techno Podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We will see you next time.